Good morning, people. So the longest title in the world for a presentation. Oh, crikey. So this is really a story about the journey that Wickes have been on for the last 15 months. We kicked off at the beginning of 2016 as a fresh IT site, as a fresh company. And this is really just to record the journey that we've been on. Some of the technical challenges we've faced and beaten, and then this is really about how we're trying to shape those systems to meet the business aspirations. So it's really two parts. It's broadly around the digital transformation piece, and then the latter part on the customer centricity piece. So the agenda then is digital transformation, the business goals, and my understanding of digital transformation is that this is really the enactment of the journey that people have been on for the last few years in terms of customer centricity. So digital transformation is just such a broad topic, and yet I never find anyone who can define it. So this is my understanding of what digital transformation is. It's about going down the customer-centric route. In terms of where we're at, Wickes was purchased by Travis Perkins about 14 years ago. It didn't operate particularly well. The marketplace wasn't very good, and as a consequence, Wickes really languished. So all of the systems that we're dealing with now are approximately 14 years old and haven't been touched in the time that I've been there. This all changed when Simon King was appointed MD about 5 years ago. He came from Tesco, had a very different approach to life, and wanted to really transform the way that Wickes is operating. So he set up a business plan to transform the turnover of Wickes from 1 billion to 2 billion in 5 years. And we're well on the way to that. So I think from about 1.2 billion a couple of years ago, we're now at about 1.7 in 3 years. And I think we'll easily achieve the 2 billion and probably about the 2.5 billion as we go along. And clearly what we need to do is then build the systems that support the doubling in the volume and the different ways that we enact our business. Currently, all our systems are run by Travis Perkins, so we are a really odd case. We're effectively a greenfield site. It's the first time in my life, and I'm very old, where I've ever arrived in an organisation and they say, here's a greenfield, go and do what you need to do with it. So for the first time ever, I get the chance to build something which I would like to have inherited if I'd arrived in the place. So we're now in the process of going through a process of divisionalisation. The CEO, John Clark, has decided that the shared service model doesn't work particularly well and that each of the business units need to be self-sufficient. So we are about somewhere between a quarter and a third of the size, oh, hello Miles, of the Travis Perkins brand. So there's about 8 billion turnover within the brand, and we're somewhere between a quarter and a third of that. And we're in the process now of taking control of those systems. So firstly, support and service, and then we will take physical control of the systems by putting them into our AWS cloud. So I'm going to go through the journey that we've been on in setting that cloud up. So over the 2 years, we've had 2 different sets of mandates. So in year 1, it was build an IT organisation. So really, this in reality got kicked off in about September of 2015, but really didn't take action until March 2016. We were told to take a cloud-first approach, so TP themselves are emptying their data centres, and as a brand new organisation, we see no need to build our own data centre. We would rather do this all in the cloud. And just as a matter of interest, how many people are already in the cloud? Show of hands? So not many, so a few, okay. We need to take ownership of the new systems, and broadly we're trying to be no more expensive than the current operation. There are currently about 600 people doing IT in Northampton, and that really surprises me for a company which is essentially building trading supplies. We were asked to become self-sufficient around about October, November of 2016. And we didn't understand what this was about. We were concerned that Wickes were up for sale. That's clearly not the case. It was more about the efficiency of the operation. So over the course of this year and next year, we'll take ownership of the systems, and we've got a fairly hard deadline in that TP want to exit their data centers within 2 years. So it's really, we must have about 40 odd applications that we run, probably 200 in total. So to move all of those within 2 years is quite a difficult task. We're taking quite a radical approach to the way we do things. We're sort of a management organization, and essentially we want to outsource most of that work. So the way we're doing this is that we act as the central hub, the control body, the sort of decision-making piece, and then we will push work out as far as we can to third parties. We want to be very light, so we tend to use consultancies to compensate for the number of people, although that is starting to grow. We are taking an approach that we term as modern basics, which is that we want to build a very modern organization, but without the frills. So the modern part is the cloud, the open source technologies that we use, and the basics is really no frills. So really, my experience is that you should give people the absolute minimum, then let them work out what they need, and then react to that. We also recognize that we can't predict the future, and in fact, we are changing constantly. And I think this is a very unusual case. Most people won't be in the same gifted position that we are. As a greenfield site, we can do more or less what we want. There's no real legacy that we're having to deal with, so we can flip and change. And I'll show you one of our cloud models later, and that has already morphed. And I suppose I said that we are a greenfield site, and it's just a great place to be. In terms of the growth of people, we were 3 people in December 2015. That was our CIO, our head of delivery, myself as head of architecture. We're about 10 people in March. We're up to about 30 people in October, and we're probably about 50 people now. We've recently brought Cognizant in to do our service support on the grounds that we're largely all a contract-based organisation, and we need some continuity in the service support. So rather than investing it in contractors who are prepared to leave or will be leaving at some point, we're trying to embed that within Cognizant. And I suppose the other big issue is that not only are we trying to run IT, but we're trying to grow an IT organisation at the same time. And that's actually quite a difficult thing to do. This is just the terms of the IT organisation. So we had architecture on board at the start of the year, but really we didn't get business change until the start of this year. So it's been quite a radically changing organisation. When we set out on this road, we had a clear idea that we were going to do 4 different things. We were going to look at microspace planning, which is the merchandising part, then stock and inventory, then order management, and then macrospace planning. In reality, things change on a day-by-day basis. So having been brought in to look at the merchandising piece, it then became set up an ERP, change the accounting function, move to cloud. So it's just a rapidly changing space. And really for such a pedestrian organisation as Wickes, I mean, people, we sell timber and bricks and drills. It's really quite an exciting place to be. So this was the design brief for phase 1, which was essentially outsource this operation to JDA. So we had a 14-year-old system inside TP under the name of IKB, and we were then trying to move that into the JDA estate under the name of CKB. And broadly, it's as simple as this, that we take product and location from TP, pipe that through our systems, into the JDA cloud. Our people then operate on that to create the ranges, pass it back into the Wickes estate. We do something quite clever there, which was we net off the entire product set. So we build 2 things. We build the range and the unranged pieces. And that's important because we need the unranged pieces in store. So if someone brings back an item from another store that's not on their range, we know how to deal with it. So that's the sort of simple brief, and this is how we've layered up the solution. So over the course of the last year, we've had to build an AWS platform, we've had to build an integration layer, put services on top of that, and the bit that we're really talking about today is the identity service. So we having done this on a number of occasions, so I built Tesco.com, I did DIY.com, and also the BAT Worldwide B2B ordering system. What you're really trying to move away from is multiple sign-ons for multiple applications within your business. And the entire architecture team were just committed to getting identity done right. So to get this up and running, and if we weren't doing something much larger than we are here, we would never have gone down this route. I mean, we could have done this through FTP. But essentially, we've had to build an entire cloud architecture, and that took us about 6 months. So we kicked off in March, we're finished by about October, and already this is starting to morph. But broadly, we have a set of environments that reflect sandpit, dev, test, pre-prod, and prod. So it's, as it were, a sort of fairly standard IT operation. Each of them is dual hosted, so we're striped across 2 availability zones in Ireland, and shortly we'll be striped across 2 availability zones in Germany. So that gives us the high availability and the DR components of this. We're also going through a CI/CD operation, so continuous integration, continuous delivery. So we have our Jenkins servers set up. We use Packer, Docker, any number of clever little acronyms. We haven't got automation right yet. We had an ambition not to go into production until everything was automated. We're finding that we can't meet that, and we're still struggling with that one now. In terms of the integration architecture, we're using a product called WSO2. These are really quite a radical bunch. They're based in Sri Lanka. Broadly, what they've done is taken a whole load of open source technologies and wrapper them under their own brand name. They've sort of conformed it into a thing called the Carbon set. And the nice thing about it is you pay for what you use. So I think one of the major problems these days is that the big retailers, the big SIs, actually the Oracles, the Microsofts of the world, insist that you buy the entire package. With WSO2, you can pick and choose from the 20 or 30 components they have, and you only pay for what you deploy in production. So the estate has gone in lighter than this. We've probably only got an ASB, the decision support services, and the identity service. So really quite a lightweight framework. And then as we grow through the year, we add new components and then start to pay for those. This is the service architecture, so I'm sorry that's not a particularly good representation. We find that there's probably about 8 key services that we need, so around product range, pricing, promotions, and that will service our immediate needs. And then as we go forward, we will build more. We have brought part of the development in-house, so typically we would try and outsource the development, but we had a rather bad experience with our provider, and we've now brought the microservices architecture back in-house. So we've now got a team of 6 people, so 3 technical designers and 3 coders that build our microservices. And we're building this on a factory model. So what we've done is we've decomposed what a microservice looks like. So all the logging, the error reporting, all of these things are now component pieces. And broadly, the only bit we need to change is the piece that is particular for that service. So in this way, we can manufacture things very rapidly. So it'll take us about 2 or 3 months to get the framework sorted out. But at that point, we will then start to really accelerate through this. The danger for us is that we will have then 60 or 70 services which are being supported by contractors, which is really not the right place to be, which is why we will bring Cognizant in to look after that. I could do something on the microservices architecture, but I think that's just too geeky for today. So where we're trying to get to then is to get Omni Channel sorted out, to have a range agnostic form of order capture, do order management with the distributors as part of it, which is really having the rules based attached to order management, do smart fulfillment, so this is whereby we can fulfill an order from a store rather than from a DC, and in fact we can fulfill it from any store. So the point of this is that we, rather than having the hub and spoke model that we use currently where click and collect orders and distributed orders go to a hub, we're now starting to build out a stock service which allows us to know where every bit of stock is in our entire estate. We then take an order, and we can then say, what's the cheapest way of fulfilling that order using third-party logistics? So we've recently given up our entire fleet, including the huge lorries called the HIABs, and we've outsourced that to third-party logistics people. And this is a really radical thing to do. You know, it's a fundamentally different way of doing our business. The other short-term objective we have is to improve our extended range. So we have broadly two categories of products. So we've got the timber, the bricks, and the tools. And the other side of our business is kitchens and bathrooms. For the other parts of it, things like garden sheds, panelling, and the like, we go to dropship vendors. And we probably have something like 2,000 products and maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 dropship vendors. We see a massive opportunity to operate in a marketplace by extending the dropship vendors. So alongside the strategic work we're doing currently, we're also starting to extend the dropship vendor stuff. So we'll probably take this from 5 to 20 million over the course of the next year, and there's no reason why we can't get that to 50 million. And as I said, we've moved to third-party logistics, so we've binned our entire fleet. And it's fair to say that Wickes really operate largely because of the people in the stores. You wouldn't believe the amount of effort that goes into fulfilling an order. So if we can't fulfill it from inside an order, there's people disappearing cards to the next Wickes shop to bring that order together. It's just an unbelievably complicated and expensive way of doing business. So that's really what we're trying to get away from. So picking these off sort of one by one, for me, Omni Channel is the ability to start a journey in any channel. It's the ability to continue it in any channel and then to finish it in any channel. Having done some time at Tesco, one of the things that I realised was that broadly you want your customers to be able to do the same thing that your internal people can do, but with just a different security model on it. So that's what we're trying to do here, that we will have an RBAC process whereby certain people can do certain things and other people can't. It's just the degree of control we put over it. And for this, we really need to centralise the way that we handle customers. So at the minute, we have at least, well, probably 3 or 4 different places that we register customers in. So we register onto the website, we register onto our B&P application, we register it separately into the kitchens and bathrooms area. And that means you have a very fragmented journey. It's even worse than that we can probably only take the kitchens and bathroom orders through the kitchens and bathrooms functionality and the other stuff through the other functionality. And it means broadly that if we're, well, let me do identity first. So this is the sort of model that we've got, that we are bringing all of these things. So we currently have all of these identities set in separate places, and one of the big operations that we need to do is then harmonise that around one identity store. So we'll put both our internal people and our external people into this identity store, and we will abstract this authentication away from the applications that use it. So where we have Hybris and things like Vision, which have their own identity stores, we will move that away. We will authenticate against our identity store, and then you've got true single sign-on for your customer base. And for me, this is one of the fundamental parts of getting your omni-channel stuff right. This is our order management as it stands, and this is why we don't do omni-channel well. We have 4 different lines of entry and effectively 4 sets of systems supporting what we're doing. So it's just horrific to try to manage this. If we take an order in store, there's absolutely no way we can manage that on the web. And likewise, if it's been placed on the web, we have no way of controlling that in store. This is where we want to get to, a much more simplified architecture, which is we put everything into a single order management system. We can then, if we have to do post-order management, which is a large part of our world, there's virtually no kitchen order gets to completion without having several changes done to it. So we need the ability to do this in flight. At the minute, if we want to change an order, we have to cancel it from the from the order, refund that, and then create a separate order, which means that we then have two dissociated orders, where it originally set off as one. If someone comes in store and says, I'd like to order a garden shed, we say the simplest thing for you to do is go back home and order that on your own laptop, because we can't do that for you in store. So we're now in the process of implementing a new till. So we're bringing a product called OVC, One View Commerce, in. We'll probably be the first people in the country to do that. It's a fairly radical, brand new service-oriented till setup. We have Hybris as our web component. In my book, an extremely capable tool set. Having survived both ATG and Hybris, I would go for Hybris every time. We have massive problems with Vision, our kitchens and bathrooms ordering piece, in that it is too flexible, and over the course of the last 15 years, people have lumped so much into it, it's lost its ability to be the CRM. So we will unpick that. And then for our call center piece, we will use the Hybris cockpit to be able to manage that as a post-order management function. We are about to put True Commerce in, so we have True Commerce in the state already. This is known already as We Supply. And the massive benefit to us from this is that there's the reverse information flow for this. So currently, we have this awful process whereby we take an order on the web, we then print that off, we create a PDF, and we email that to the dropship vendor. And that's the last we ever see of it until the customer comes along and said, why hasn't my order arrived? So for me, this is just a really poor customer experience, and something that we will address by having the reverse flow. So we'll then be able to message, providing that the dropship vendor has the capability to send us the right message, we will then message that back to the customers. And clearly all of these messages we'll put through our own CRM to add to the richness of our CRM database. So wrapping up, I think the big thing I've learned over the last year is that with cloud and with Agile, you have to be prepared to fail. So in my book, in previous lives, when it would take you 3 months to assemble the kit to even start doing something, this changes with the cloud architecture, in that you can knock things up and literally knock them down again in an afternoon. You have the opportunity to see whether things work or not. One of the first things we put in was a thing called Pano, which is a panoramic viewer for kitchens. So we have the ability to take a kitchen design and then render that in a 3D way, as in you can spin around the kitchen. You can change the viewpoint from where you're looking at it. So for me, it's a massive sales tool. You can give this over to the customer so they get a feel for what their kitchen looks like before the thing's ever delivered. And we've put this in an absolutely light way. So it's all sitting on one web server in the cloud. We have 12 stores running on this. We have the ambition to roll this out to all 250 stores. But we would never have got this off the ground if we hadn't had this ability to experiment. Another part of this is that we have an extremely light organisation. I've probably got about 4 architects in my team, but they are all unbelievably capable. So we have done a load of the delivery in advance of the delivery teams arriving. And we went through an uncomfortable patch in about November, December, where we as architects suddenly realised that we weren't responsible for delivering these systems. Our job was to draw the maps and the roadmaps. Nevertheless, it feels to me that if you have a small team who are capable, it is far better than having loads of people who really aren't up to scratch. And again, the other part is that we've spent a long time thinking about what we're doing. I think if you get the preparation done quickly, the preparation done properly, then you can get the execution done really quickly after that. The one big issue is that building credibility of the business. As a young organisation, we've almost had to coach our board into understanding what IT means. Whereas at one point they would have been told what they were getting. We've now given them the opportunity for them to determine their own future. So we now say, for this budget, we can do this amount of work. And we had a massive bun fight earlier in the year where We told them what they were getting, and they said, no, we want all of those things below the line. And we said, that's fine. You either give us more money or you substitute it for something above the line. So it's just been a real eye-opener in terms of getting these people to understand what IT is about. And I think the last part is that we've put JDA in, and it doesn't really matter if JDA falls over for 2 days. It's not mission critical. Normally we're arranging several months in advance. So this gives us the opportunity to fix things in a timely fashion. This is a massive piece of machinery that we've put in. We don't really know how to control it yet. So not having a mission critical system on day one has been a real benefit to us. That's it, thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you.